Hi, my name is Michael Felker. I'm with the film Things Will Be Different.
Can you tell us how everything started on the project? Where did the inspiration for the story come from? Do you remember?
The inspiration for Things Will Be Different came from lots of conversations with my science fiction loving father after movies we saw. Um, my mom who loves science fiction movies too. She liked more like rom coms and dramas, so we would talk about those. But specifically with my father, who loves science fiction, he would want to put together the world and the rules and theories of what happened or what didn't happen after we would watch a movie. So we did that for years. Me being raised on, 70s, 80s, 90s science fiction. I got this idea in the back pocket for a while that I was stewing on. And it wasn't until after we had seen the film Everything Everywhere All at Once a couple of years ago in theaters, where we did that exact same thing, which is we went to a coffee shop after the movie and just talked about it for hours until it eventually led me pitching him this rough idea about shooting this time traveling safe house that's actually a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And a brother and sister robbers go and use it to hide out in. And we just kind of spun around with some of the rules and ideas from there. And then after that very long conversation we'd had, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours after the movie, I wrote the script in about 6 weeks thereafter. So
What fascinates you most about the topic of time traveling?
I think the fact that time travel is, for me, time travel, specifically in movies, is basically the fun of it comes from playing with a nonlinear concept in a linear format. It allows us to rethink how events are tied together, how people react and bend their wills within the construct of I can always redo something, or I can go back and fix something, or I could go get ahead and stop something from that may or may not happen. It allows people to play a what if scenario that they can't live right now because we don't know how to manipulate time beyond what we know now. So in movies, you get to play within this linear format, stretch where the borders of where your brain can be, and really test out what a person can or can't do within the moral fiber of themselves. So that's what I really love about time travel, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface of time travel in time travel movies. I feel like there's a lot of the great time travel movies out there, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Back to the Future, 12 Monkeys, Looper. They all really dive deep into some great thorny avenues in the human mind and psyche. But they can go even further, and I feel like we just got started. So that's what's exciting for me about time travel in general.
If you were able to time travel, which period would you prefer, the past or the future?
Uh, well, it's funny because I've worked on a movie. If I were to choose between time traveling between the past and the future, I would definitely want to do the future. Only because we already know where the past is. We already know where we've come from and what science like evolutions we've had as the human race, and like sociological advancements we've had, and industrial revolution. Like, I worked on a movie called Synchronic as an editor, and that movie is literally about the horrors of taking an African American man and having him being dropped in time where every single time is incredibly dangerous for them. And so it would be incredibly crazy to for me to go back to that time, knowing that if I got stuck, I'm stuck. But the future could be insane. It would blow my mind. I would love to see where we as humans go, even if it means seeing the end of our planet or our solar system. It would be a fascinating thing to see that I would not turn down.
Tell us about the cast of the film. How did you find your two protagonists?
We found our two leads, Adam David Thompson and Riley Dandy, through our fantastic um, casting director, Chrissy Flory Ellington. I might be butchering her name, but Chrissy really came in and she read the script, puzzled with us over like the rules and the logic of it all, but also really latched on to the heart that makes this all work, which is this brother sister dynamic. So she was able to pull not just our incredible actors, but find the right pair. So Adam and Riley were actually the top of our heap right away. They're actually the first people we saw after um, we got the audition tapes. And we thought they were just an incredible pair that really worked out when they, like, you know, auditioned with some pretty meaty scenes, like the meaty scenes in the movie they auditioned with, which were huge help for us to know that they can tackle such an emotional crux of the movie. So when we did cast them, the only downside is that they lived in different cities. So Riley lived in Los Angeles when we were casting, and Adam lived in the northeast of the United States near New York. Um, so when we did cast them, we did a lot of Zoom recordings. We did a lot of Zoom meetings. So I think we cast them about 2 months before we started shooting. And the biggest thing for me and their relationship was to get them on a Zoom and we all just started talking. We didn't talk about the script. We didn't talk too much about our characters, really. We just talked about ourselves and talked about our lives, getting to know what we found funny, what we found sad, and really got to know what was going on with our lives. And then once we kind of went through the character work, we went through some of the ideas they pulled, went through the script a bunch. I then left the Zoom to them. So basically, what I did was, as a brother with a sister, as a person with a sister, one of the biggest important things that you have is an unspoken language that only you two know. Anytime that there's like stress amongst the family or stress in your life, you basically can look to the other, say like a couple of words that they understand, and then the rest of the world goes silent around you. So when we did do our Zoom, rehearsals and calls with each other, I eventually just hopped off the Zoom link we were all on and was like, you two just talk. You guys develop your own sibling language that even I don't know about. So that way, when set on an indie film, which, there's not enough time and not enough money, stress can happen. If the world of the production gets in the way, you guys can look at each other across the set and know you guys got each other's backs with your own secret language. And I think that really helped establish their chemistry beyond just, their look and vibe, is that they can just talk to each other. You can know that they're close and related just from the words and the body language and how they just look at each other. And that really, I think, helped us a lot with certain scenes, but also just their emotional arcs across the movie.
At some point, Joseph has been told that he's just been caught in something that's bigger than him. But still, he tries to make a difference very hard, actually. So, what is your take on that? Can we humans make a difference, or is everything just fate?
You just like poked at the biggest question the movie proposes, is that as humans who have love, desire, and most cripplingly hope, can we make a difference against the winds of time? And how you come away from the movie, you can come away from a couple of ways about it. You can either come away being like, yeah, time is a crushing enemy that's weighing on us all, and we make no difference no matter what we do. Or you can try to find any sort of spark of hope that maybe things will be different. Things will be different can be a title of, that's like a rock in an ocean that you can hang on to during a storm, or it could be this false hope that then just realizes that old habits die hard, and it's an ironic title that makes you sink in that sink amongst time's great ocean. So it's I'll leave the audience to it. It's a question that we all thought about, considering how their arc is a constant push and pull. about how Adam's character Joe has let down Riley's character Sydney before, and he tries to make amends earlier, and then it's already happening poorly all over again. So it's a lot is left to the audience to stew over that question at the end of the movie.
A few things about the production background, actually, since things will be different. Is your first feature as a director? What were the biggest challenges you concerning the production you experienced?
The biggest challenges we had were anything that was just out of my purview as a director. So, a lot of first time directors, as I've noticed, including myself, when things get hard, always lean into the job that they had before they were a director. So for me, I've been editing feature films for a long time. So my biggest tool on set was if anything went wrong, I just used my editor brain and started cutting on set, knowing that this is the shot we're going to live with and I don't need coverage and they'll save us time and money. But, some of the biggest issues we had were things that were beyond my control or beyond my knowledge as a filmmaker. So I learned more about what every department head does. I know what troubles they have versus what I needed to achieve. So I always tried to like be flexible to what we could with our budget and time. But the biggest production woes actually came from pivoting on things that just or what I would just call them acts of God. So, we had COVID come through our set on day one, and we were shooting during COVID protocols where we had to quarantine, some of our cast. Like we had like one of our cast members had COVID on day one, and we had to pivot a little bit based off that. And so, as my filmmaking brain, I'm trying to figure out what the movie looks like a little bit differently, but still not compromise too much of what we're setting out to do. We also had a winter storm actually come through shortly after we fully came back from COVID, and killed power to our entire town we were shooting in
Mm.
for about 3 or 4 days. Like it didn't quite come back. It was freezing rain. It wasn't even snow. Freezing rain would then uh, it would rain, freeze on trees at the top, and then all these trees would just fall over. And all the trees just started knocking over power lines left and right. Almost trapped us at the location, too. So we had to pivot off that and shoot the rest of the movie on generators. There are certain scenes, if you watch them, the actors are freezing because there is no heat. There is no way to get through. So their performances are dictated based off just living in the moment in their lines and then just trying to stay warm. Um, and which really helped actually with their performance. But then we also had when we came back from for the summer shoot, we were in the middle of the SAG strike, the Screen Actors Guild strike.
Oh.
So uh, both of our actors are in Screen Actors Guild, and we had to get a waiver or an interim agreement to keep going. We were banking on shooting with that corn, and if we didn't get that interim agreement, there wouldn't be a movie right now. So thankfully, we were all hustling for that too to make the movie happen. So we had a lot of production woes in terms of just getting the movie all done together last year, but thankfully it came together because I have a fantastic crew who made the movie better than I ever could envision it, with a cast and production team that trusted me to know that like when we shot stuff, I was like, we got it in the can, I will make it work in the edit. Sometimes I would go during lunch upstairs to the laptop that would just have the hard drives, and I would just cut something really quick and then show people like, hey, this works, look, see. And that would just put their mind at ease. So we were very fortunate to have a very nice, talented cast and crew to get us through to the end.
A little bit more precisely, if you want to share, how big was the budget at the end? Was it difficult to fund, to get all
It
the budget
was
together?
it was a very very small budget. Most of it came from what I had saved from editing work over the years. with just some help from like smaller investment, but really came from just mostly my own pocket. So we ended up, shooting what we could based off what I'd learned working on movies that were the similar type of budget level. Um, and so that really helped knowing that this is the amount of money we have, which is, again, very, very small, and went over to shoot the movie. We made sure that it was like, all right, this is a good budget for two people in one location for 90% of the movie. And then the rest of it, we just get creative with. So, everyone in our crew did get paid and everyone was taken care of, but it was like, you know, it's very easy for very small budget movies to kind of fall apart. And luckily, our main rule was don't be mean, don't be an asshole. And that starts with me specifically. So I tried to make sure that people were comfortable and we were having a good time, treat it like winter camp, so to speak, and worked with what we can with our very small budget size.
Were there ideas still that you had to adapt to the means, to the financial means you had, or that you wrote, scenes that you wrote that then weren't possible?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was like having to pivot to new scene. We had to do some rewrites on set based off of the winter storm, but also losing one of our actors to COVID for a little bit of time in quarantine. But we still, it's the story that's there was still the story we had from the beginning. We just got creative with how we told the story and how we presented certain things. So luckily, we had built enough of in our budget for contingency, which is like, hey, here's some money set aside in case things fall apart or things like the movie may not happen. And safe to say, we used that money. It wasn't much, but thankfully, we were pretty low cost considering, we hired a lot locally, and we were able to stay at the farm plus like cheap motels and Airbnbs near the area that helped like keep costs low. And then it just also helped that we made set fun. We made sure everyone was fed and paid, and then made sure that no one was breaking their back on anything. So um, yeah, so I think we really there weren't any scenes that were out of the scope for our budget, just because when I write something, I guess I have a mantra now when writing movies. There's the old saying that if you're writing a script, just write what you know, but in indie film, it's just write what you have. Is basically the big mantra. So like I try not to write something unless I knew I could practically tackle it. So there are certain things that happen towards the end of the movie that seem bigger scope or whatever, or bigger concepts, but we just try to make sure that like before I even pitched it to people, I'm like, here's how we shoot it and here's how we try to do it. So that way we're not just figuring it out on the fly just because I got a little fancy in my head with some scenes. So it was write what you have is the biggest thing I got out of that. So that way we would never be out of budget or scope.
No, so you think this was the good moment to do your first feature film, or what part would you? And how did you choose what idea you would use for your first feature? Did you have several to choose from?
Yeah, I think this was a good time to do my first feature. I had just come out of the pandemic. A lot of also of what things will be different is pandemic inspired of being trapped in a place and looking at your stuff all day. Um, I got out of the pandemic having edited so much. I actually worked and stopped. It actually kind of grew for me as an editor, where I'm in this room specifically. Uh, this is my editing bay, actually, where I kind of saw movies get made, and then I saw all these movies that weren't being made anymore, and I just had this moment of, what am I doing? I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, but I've been editing so long. I think I know enough now to go and do this. And I do have several scripts that were of this size, but the reason why I did this one, um, it was because I had the means and the necessary elements to be able to go tackle it, and I knew how to tackle it. Um, but also, it was just I found the emotional hook between the brother and sister connection and wanting to write a movie for my science fiction loving dad who just loves to pick apart movies later. And once you have the emotional connection, you kind of can use that to charge through the gauntlet of making an indie movie, which there's going to be brick wall after brick wall that's going to tell you like, hey, is this worth it anymore? And if you don't have like an emotional root there, you're going to be like, you're right, making movies is a genuinely insane thing to do. You're getting at least 20 if not more people to go and play pretend in a world that's telling you you're in their way. Like it's a crazy thing, but and you're asking people to like act out words that are in your head. It's a genuinely big ask no matter how much money you put in, but there's an emotional reason that you're like, there's no other way this can't be done, I have to tell this story. So this was the one that like had to be told, and I've had in my heart and my gut that I had to say these things for these reasons. So, and I guess the next hardest part is figuring out what that next one is after this one. So, but yes, totally the right story and the right time.
Perfect. But so this means you're already thinking of the next feature, and will it be also a fantasy genre or a genre film?
I have been in the genre world for so long, specifically, sci-fi horror, cosmic horror. So I already have written a lot of movies based off that, just because I know what works and doesn't work, but also just gets me excited. It gets people I know who watch movies nowadays also excited. So I do have multiple genre movies. I do actually have couple of other time travel movies that I now that I've done one, I wonder if it's even like it may be a leg up to get some of these slightly bigger movies, not much bigger, slightly bigger movies that also deal with time travel off the ground as well. So yeah, there's a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak, and we'll see which one comes about as this movie slowly gets rolled out to the world.
The film premiered at South by Southwest, and it traveled a lot already. And I was wondering, how did you experience the audience? Were there reactions that you were surprised with, or others that, yeah,
Yeah, we premiered at South by Southwest, and then we've been to several international festivals, and it's wild to see what the reaction is in general for a lot of people. We have you know people who come to the movie and love to play the game of figuring out the rules of the world. I like to think the audience is actually playing into one of either Sydney's mindset or Joseph's mindset. And some people play the Sydney mindset, which is they want to dig into all the documents, they want to read the movie, and then they want to pitch me what they think happened beyond the world. I actually even had a Q&A just recently where someone had the microphone in front of like 400 people and just started pitching the theories. And I was just we were all laughing because I was just like, wow, they're engaging with it. Um, but there's also some people who play like Joseph, who think that the gods are cursing them. They can't wrap their head around it, and they go like, "This is a nightmare in hell." And that's also a great read too, because it's you are those characters. You're in that mindset, and sometimes you just want to like get the hell out and see if you can make sense of it beyond with the gods, worshiping a safe and lighting candles and talking to a tape recorder and figuring out like, what does it all mean? Can you tell me the answers? I've even had people come over after Q&As and go like, can you just, what was happening in the world? Tell me the world. And I'm like, you can figure it out if you want. I could also tell you, my rule is if you want to know the whole world and rules of everything, you got to get me some beers and get me drunk. Have a good time. But it's been fascinating. I think we played in Korea, and there was a lot of great, interesting questions from there. We played in Brussels and Neuchâtel. Those are some great reads there. We had a really great audience who just had a blast in Brazil for Fantaspoa. And then at South by, we even had people line up after the screening and just asked all these questions that honestly, it's kind of the thing as a filmmaker when you're making a heady sci-fi, you have to be ready for answers beyond that you thought. And luckily I've thought about this world and these rules so often enough that I can just pull like, well, yeah, oh yeah, you're talking about that moment, well, that actually has an answer here if you think about that moment a little bit more, or there. But also some of it's left to audience interpretation. I like the audience being able to add up their own theories just like me and my dad would, because some of it is left being like, well, there is some answers, but what do you think which one it is? And it's cool to see people react to that way too. So it's funner than I think, a traditional, 3 act structure, closure filled drama where they're like, ah, yes, I get it. And I can walk away and not think about the movie. It's been funner to be like lots of people swinging their fists into the sky, trying to grasp to the unknown. It's been really fun to get that type of reaction.